And you as writers, you do want to have superheroic characteristics, superpowers, will it be for your characters. I think the best characters always do, even if it's something as simple as, again, Sam. Sam is the one I listed as kind of the everyman over here, the paradigm of everyman, but he has a superpower. He is extremely loyal. He is superhumanly loyal. He has loyalty like Superman has super strength in equal measures. And that loyalty that he expresses is part of what makes us fall in love with him. Historically, poll after poll, Sam is chosen as the favorite character in The Lord of the Rings by readership, overwhelmingly chosen as the favorite character. And I think it's because of that mixture of everyman and Superman. In the books, Aragorn is a Superman. If you read the books, one of the things Peter Jackson did is he humanized Aragorn a little bit more, gave him this sort of do I become king or not sort of thing. That isn't in the books. In the books, Aragorn is just the man. It's like, all right, how many orcs are we going to slay today, Aragorn? Well, I'm going to shoot for 700. How about you, Gimli? I might hit 650. Okay, let's go. I mean, that's, that's how it goes. He is an expression of this. I mean, Tolkien was a Beowulf scholar. Aragorn is Beowulf. He is the superhuman warrior king. And that works in there, but people don't generally go like, oh, Aragorn, I love Aragorn, he's so interesting. I mean, they'll read about him, but then when they start talking, it's usually Sam followed closely by Gollum as people's favorite characters.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and so this is relating to this sort of thing. So as you're building your character, you want to start asking yourself, what limitations they have? External handicaps, physical limitations, mental hang-ups. I mean, you can make the argument, I don't put something like depression in here. Depression is a demon to work against. It is not a character flaw, if that makes sense. And dividing those two in my head is very important for me as an author to understanding my character. If one of my characters has depression, it's not getting rid of depression that is their character arc. Their character arc is dealing with the emotional ramifications of that and becoming a person. A flaw can be, I don't know how to deal with my depression. The depression is a limitation. The flaw is I don't deal with it very well. This can change. This doesn't necessarily have to. Now, there are stories about overcoming these. Okay? Those things do exist, and you can write that story, but I approach it very differently than I approach this. Okay? Questions? Yes?
Is there like any inherent trade-off, like epicness and relatability?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I would say that there definitely is. There's inherent trade-off between, maybe not epicness, but sheer awesomeness versus relatability. Now, the giving up 10% of sheer awesomeness and gaining 120% of relatability, I mean, there is a trade-off there. You're losing 10% awesomeness, but what you gain is so much more useful for your story, but there is that. And you can make the argument that there are readers out there that just would rather have that 10%, and that's why we still have stories that focus on these superhuman characters that just do everything right. And if they have a flaw, it's that they're just too good. Yes, or they're unwilling to bend on their convictions. That's one I've read before. It's just like, his only flaw was that he wasn't willing to be evil. Yeah. That is actually one of Superman's limitations. Code of honor. A lot of the superheroes have a code of honor. It is something to deal with, but it is not something to overcome, because the way to overcome it would be to just get rid of it. So there are some very good stories about a code of ethics that gets broken and what that does to the character. You can write those stories if you want, but how the code of ethics gets in the way and things like that. But again, I talk about it this way so you can start defining these two groups in your head to help you really split them apart, because you approach them differently. With flaws, my goal is to show incremental progress. All right, here you are. Incremental progress. We will talk about this in the plotting section, but to give you a preview, plot is about a sense of progression. Plot is not about actual progression. It's about giving a sense of progression. The reason for this is that All of these things are arbitrary in your book. All right? You can make 10 minutes last 1,000 pages if you want to, or you can cover 10 minutes in a couple of words. You have complete control over this. You have complete control over the character's progress. You can have them change in an instant. You are fully capable of doing that in your writing. You are capable usually of ending the book in chapter 2 if you wanted to. You could write that ending. It wouldn't be satisfying, but you can do it. So the story is about giving this sense of progression in a satisfying way. It's not necessarily about that ending, because you could give them that ending at any point. It's interesting to consider that, to keep that in mind. So with your flaw, incremental progress toward the flaw is going to be very helpful. This is where the thing that you've probably learned in high school that looks like this comes in. All right? That's because usually you have this sort of, hey, they're working on this, oh, they backslid. Hey, they're working on this, oh, they backslid. Hey, they're working on this, woohoo, we survived. And then, denouement. This is usually used for plots, but that's basically what you're looking at. It works for all these things. And so your idea for giving the character progress on what they're working on is this sort of method. All right? So if your idea is that your character jumps into things too quickly, you probably actually will start like this. Down, 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 down. And then okay, then you realize you need to work on it. Oh, they made a mistake. Oh, you'll start going like this because you need to establish that they're doing something wrong at the beginning. Your challenge in doing this is making sure that they remain proactive and that you don't turn the reader off. A lot of writers like to do this thing where they make their character very, very flawed at the beginning. They're going to be this great anti-hero, and then they're going to turn into a real hero and things like that. And then your readers hate your character, and it's very hard to get them beyond those initial chapters. This is where having them be relatable and flawed at the same time comes into your story. Now, you can tell great stories about characters who are exemplary. They don't have to have all of these things, who are exemplary in a few of the areas. And if you're writing a true sort of a story about an unsympathetic protagonist, you can skip the sympathetic and make them super, super capable and super, super proactive. And it'll work. It's not necessarily the right thing for every story, but it does work. In fact, you can probably pull out a host of sort of supervillain stories that do this at the beginning. Things like Despicable Me and whatnot. They're super capable. They're super proactive. Those stories are also comedies, which really helps, honestly. Doing that without the comedy would be a whole lot tougher. But since you've got the comedy and you're really there for the comedy, you show capable, you show proactive. Megamind is another one of these. And even though they're getting foiled, he's getting foiled by the superhero, you see all this cool stuff that he's capable of doing, and then he actually succeeds, that sort of thing.